Social media can be fun and informative in small doses, but as you know, it can also be very dangerous. Here to talk about that and the dangers for your family is Matthew Dolman. He is a social media harm legal expert and a senior founding partner at Dolman Law Group. First of all, Matthew, thank you so much for joining us because this is a topic that we've talked about a lot, and a lot of parents need more information. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me, John.
Let's talk about some of the serious downside of social media, other than just monopolizing a lot of your time and distracting someone. Tell us about some of the dangers.
Well, you have a whole generation of youngsters and adolescents, if you will, that are determining their self-worth based on what they're seeing on social media. You know, if you look at someone's social media feed, it's full of the most glamorous images. It's full of people living their best life, but that's not reality. You know, when you're young, maybe you develop a pimple, a blemish, if you will. Everyone on social media has filters. You have young women who are developing their self-worth, their identity, and how they look at the world based on how many likes they obtain, based on how others view their beauty, and that's just not reality. And that's what's causing a number of mental health issues, including suicidal ideation, depression, anxiety. We can go through there's just a number of issues that have been related to social media and the harm that this has caused. And this is, I think, over the next 10 to 20 years, it's going to grow worse unless we curb this. And that's what I want to get into is some of the tips that would instruct parents on and how to curb this behavior and how to look out for the best interest of their children.
Yeah, Matthew, you're exactly right. Depression, we've heard a lot about the anxiety that social media can cause. And then you can go to also the extreme of the bad stuff, which includes predators, bullying. So I guess first I would ask you, Matthew, I know you deal with a lot of families with this issue. So what are some of the warning signs for parents that maybe their child is struggling because of social media?
Well, I'm going to take a step back for a second. So, John, if somebody was to approach you on the street today and call you a loser, or if you were to go on Twitter or Facebook and you look at your social media feed and someone attacks you, you have enough fortitude. You've obviously succeeded in life. You know where you are. You're an adult, though. You're able to deal with this. You have enough confidence. Children don't. And the problem is that they have a very limited worldview. And when you're spending an hour or two a day on TikTok or Facebook or Instagram, and you're viewing these feeds and you're exposed to individuals that you might not be ready for, and for images that you probably your young mind which is very impressionable, is not quite primed for, it can have disastrous consequences. So what do we look for? We look for isolation. Are they withdrawn? They suddenly have a new circle of friends, some new interests, erratic behavior. I mean, there's a host of issues that are related to social media addiction and some of the symptoms that are, again, related to too much screen time and exposure to what I would call stimulants based on social media use.
If you don't mind, Mr. Dolman, I'm curious about this. You know, we laugh about social media. Sometimes we laugh about it and say it can be addictive. But there really is some science behind that. According to a study at Cal State University, they were saying the dopamine that is involved with gambling can also be associated with looking at that screen in social media. So talk about that a little bit, the dangers of the fact that, you know, your child really can truly be addicted.
So Harvard pioneered the first study. Cal State came in second. Their two studies show pretty much the same thing. The dopamine, which is like the feel-good emotion, the feel-good hormone that one has, it is triggered by, you know, going onto social media. If you have a post that is liked, each like releases some dopamine. And the same dopamine release that if you pull the slot at a casino, or that if you use drugs, this is the same type of dopamine release that one receives to do a stimulant such as cocaine. It's amazing that one can have the same exact type of effect and type of symptoms from using social media that you can have from using street drugs, illicit narcotics, or from gambling.
So, Mr. Dolman, how can you help families break addiction, especially teenagers? I know, as I mentioned before, you work with a lot of families. What are some of the tips that you can pass along?
Well, some is, common sense, and I hate to be so cavalier in saying this. Parents need to take some self-responsibility. When children are looking for outside validation as to their self-worth, as to their image, there's a problem there, and that's not being fostered at home. You know, what tips would I place? Well, parents need to take a more active role in their children and their lifestyle, and limiting the screen time. When I grew up, children played outside. We played sports. We weren't sitting on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok for hours a day. using it for 10, 15, 20 minutes, that's one thing. But when you're using it for hours upon hours of your day, that's a whole different story. But you should also be aware of what are they using it for. Now, if you're going on there, you're scrolling through some videos, what type of videos are they looking at? Are they using social media to determine, what are the newsworthy stories of the day? Are they getting the news from social media? Did they realize that's a distorted view of the news? And it might not be news. It might be misinformation. And I'm not getting into political views here, but, if you go on to Facebook or Instagram, you can get there's plenty of information about the vaccination movement, whether you're for or against it. You might want to have the conversation with your children of where you stand, or at least explain to them that when you're going onto social media, you're not necessarily getting the news. You're getting a distorted view of the news through the lens of an individual, and that can distort their worldview.
So, Mr. Dolman, if you would, please, let's assume that you're Elon Musk. You decide to purchase, let's go ahead and say Facebook or Twitter. How would you change the rules? Because I do think parents have a responsibility, but I also think that Facebook as a company has a responsibility as well.
They do have a responsibility, and they're subject to a number of lawsuits right now. Facebook and Instagram are owned by Meta. TikTok is its own company. And right now there's a number of lawsuits that have been consolidated in the Northern District of California. And we're targeting these social media companies based on the algorithms that they use. These are very advanced algorithms to target adolescents with specific functionality. Let me back up a step and try to explain this to you. When you sign on to TikTok or to Facebook or Instagram, it's almost like a little mini interview. You're listing what your interests are, what are your hobbies, and then they're going to start tailoring the information to you. They start to tailor the feed, and based on the amount of screen usage and the amount of time you stay on a video or the amount of time you look at content, they start to finely tune what content you're going to see over and over again. That is what's scary. I mean, it's such a well-disciplined, artificial intelligence, human learning algorithm that it just learns more about you and it basically is a file on every single user. And they tailor their ads to you, they tailor the content to you.
When I opened up the segment, I said I really appreciate your expertise, and now proof's in the pudding. Thank you for all this good information. For our viewers who want more information on this topic, or perhaps they'd like to reach out to you, Mr. Dolman, how can they do that?
Sure, they can come to my website. It's www.dolmanlaw.com. We're a national law firm, but if you have an issue that's in a different state that we're not licensed in, I'm happy to point you out to other individuals or experts, or at least give you the resources so you can make the decision for yourself. I'm not here to sell myself as a lawyer. I'm here to help parents and adolescents receive the help that they need. So I appreciate you I really appreciate you having me. I learned a lot about you from your producer. You're a big Muhammad Ali fan. I'm a huge boxing fan, as you can see from behind me. I realize today is National Popcorn Day, so I'm going to leave here now and get some popcorn. And I'll leave you one last tidbit. I come from a family where we smuggled as much food into that movie theater as possible. So that's my embarrassing moment for you.
Matthew, let me tell you, you're one of the greatest attorneys of all times, man. You look pretty and you got good information, man. You're good. Thank you.
Well.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Once again, Matthew Dolman, and a very serious issue. I was happy to lighten it up there at the end. All right, coming up here on a lighter note and a fun note and something we need to pay attention